Hey, welcome. We are revisiting the Mania of WrestleMania Rewatch podcast. I'm Carlos,
And I'm Maria.
and today we are going to be veering off our road to WrestleMania to revisit the first ever Elimination Chamber match that took place at Survivor Series 2002. This emanated from Madison Square Garden. This event not only was the first ever Elimination Chamber match to be held, but it was also the return of the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, back to the WWE. This is his second ever match after returning back to the company from his hiatus because of a back.
So we also have some other icons besides HBK, Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels. We have Triple H, Booker T, Chris Jericho, Kane, and Rob Van Dam, RVD, which are all like very excellent wrestlers. So this match came as a recommendation by our last guest, Ray from RPAD TV.
Yeah, he suggested that we go back and revisit this match, and particularly yourself, since the Perth pay per view was like your first introduction to the Elimination Chamber match. Even though you got to see the women and the men, this Elimination Chamber, since it's taking place at a Survivor Series, it didn't have its own pay per view like it did in Perth.
Mm-hmm.
So this only had one. And since it was only one match at that time,
Right.
we didn't have the women's, obviously. And the other reason we didn't have the women's is because the women's division at this time was not as athletic or as advanced in wrestling or in storytelling to garner having its own Elimination Chamber match.
So the concept of this event is that there's two main matches that are contested inside the elimination chamber. And are there championships that are at stake?
Well, for this revisit, there is not just one; it's just two.
Okay.
But normally, now that it's own pay per view, it's either on the road to WrestleMania and you earn a title shot, or you win a championship there.
So I'm a fan of all of these wrestlers, and I couldn't wait to watch this elimination chamber. Did you get a chance to watch us live?
Yeah, I did watch this live, but I don't like remember all of it.
Okay.
But I remember like certain spots.
Right.
So
And there are some pretty iconic spots that hit really well during this match because, as we said, there's so many good wrestlers. Do you have any favorites?
like wrestlers or spots.
Well, both.
Well, my favorite wrestler would have been at this point in time Triple H, HBK, and Chris Jericho. With HBK coming back into the fold, I was very excited to see him
Okay.
come back, especially since we were always unsure if we would actually get him back into the ring. And here he comes back. He had his match at SummerSlam,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's put into this first ever match. This chamber was something that, even though in the storyline of the World Wrestling Federation, well, now Entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
this is conceived by Eric Bischoff.
Was it also
Who,
Triple H?
well, that's what I'm getting to. It was in storyline. It's conceived by Eric Bischoff, who was the Raw general manager, quote unquote. But it was actually Triple H that conceived of it, kind of like a writer or like some songwriter would do. Would just He said that he just conceived of it on a napkin and he gave it to Vince, and then Vince gave it to someone else, and he never put any type of other input beside that.
Okay.
And when they first got to see it, I think it was either a week before the pay per view.
So I guess you have to see it to believe it.
Yeah, he's like, uh, you could tell Hunter was like, you could tell that whoever created this structure was not a wrestler
Why?
because it like everything about it. Like, let's take a quick look at it,
Okay.
right? So here's the chamber.
Yes.
This is how it is now.
Looks like a spider web.
Yeah, it looks like it has a round shape,
Mhm.
and as you can see at the bottom there, those are grates.
Okay.
And then these are chains, steel chains that are going across that are kind of mimicking like a cage link, when you have those aluminum chain link fences.
Right.
So those are supposed to be there so they can climb and
Mhm.
do other things like that. But from what I was reading when I was doing the research is that these chains were not very forgiving.
Wow.
So they were rough, and there's some couple of spots I couldn't get any pictures online or anything like that
Mhm.
to post on here, but they do a couple of spots where they slingshot
Right.
or they throw RVD a couple of times to those chain link or these steel ropes,
Mhm.
quote unquote, bars, and they said that they didn't have enough play in them.
Right.
So when you were hitting them, they said that it was just like running into like a wall.
Wow. That's tough.
Yeah, so we had that. We had the grates. The grates were also unforgiving. When people would get body slammed
It was painful.
or it was painful. It was very painful. They said, or when they would get like just elbow dropped or back body dropped,
Right.
and they would feel all of those bumps.
Oh, Elimination Chamber for sure, huh?
Yeah, it lived up to its name, and we actually got to see lots of it here. So knowing this little bit of tidbit
Mhm.
that Triple H saw this, he put it on a napkin, he gave it to an engineer, and you're hearing all this feedback that I gave you.
Mhm.
How did you think? Did you think that this match was going to be like, because you had no idea what the Elimination Chamber match was before.
Okay.
And now knowing how the creator finally he got to see his creation brought to life by someone else, and then he's like, yeah, you guys, whoever made this head was never a wrestler. He had no idea how we would be able to work in this environment.
Mhm.
And hearing those words, what do you think is going to be going on in this first match? You saw it, but now, like me telling you the background.
Well, I think like anything, once you're doing something for the first time, you can only get better from there. You can only learn from your mistakes. So, and you can only keep on improving, right?
Hmm.
Is what you hope. And I think we saw that during that last Elimination Chamber in Perth, where everything looked pretty excellent, and still they still had some issues. And some of the issues that they had include lighting, where there were shadows cast over the ring. But with all that said, me watching this first one, um, a new smark or in training,
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool, and it seemed like it still held true to the Elimination Chamber that we just saw the other day. You still have these pods where the wrestlers are released,
Hmm.
and you were telling me that some of the wrestlers were not released in a timely fashion.
Well, just one of them ended up not being
Kane,
released. Well,
was it?
yeah, Kane was supposed to be released last. So the first two people that start off this match was RVD and Triple H.
Mhm.
The ones in the pods are Jericho, Booker T, Kane, and Shawn Michaels. The only one that did not come out in the order that was already predetermined when they were doing the walkthrough was Kane.
Kane.
Yeah, so it was supposed to be we got Jericho first to come out of the pod.
Okay.
He was Booker T, and then after Booker T was supposed to be HBK, but they didn't do it right, and they actually released Kane. So that threw off everything that they had planned. Uh, because in going into this match, we have Triple H, he's the heel. RVD, he's the heel, right? So when they're going at it and the timer runs out, we get introduced to Jericho.
Okay.
Jericho was kind of heelish at this time.
Mhm.
So you can't have the baby face who was RVD just getting ganged up on.
Right.
It's so we kind of need another face to even up the odds, and that's when you were throwing HBK. But because the refs or whoever was producing it shined the light on Kane, that's the one that got open.
Right.
So we got kind of like a neutral because Kane was also like in a feud with Triple H. So he was kind of facish, but he's kind of also like anything could happen
Mhm.
with this Kane. Like he can just flip and just be
So
doing his own thing.
I had a few favorites. One being RVD, who flipped off of the cage like Spider-Man in a few
Yeah,
spots,
we have that picture right here.
which I thought was super
Yeah.
impressive. He's very agile, and I love the way that he moved during this match.
Hmm.
Also, one of my other favorites during this match was Jericho. I had a good time watching him wrestle.
Yeah, this is when RVD's doing that drop onto Jericho. And then another one that I could find here is when Jericho is punching HBK when he gets out of the
Yep,
cage.
that was an awesome spot. HBK was, of course, one of my favorites during this match. Also, Booker T was pretty awesome.
Hmm.
All that strength. I really like to watch him wrestle, so he was one of my favorites during this match as well.
Yeah, we got a lot of one of your favorites here. So, what did you think, like, as far as like HBK's like gear? Because there's a story behind that.
We talked about
So,
this. So his wrestling gear was kind of bland during this match,
hmm,
and I was kind of surprised. I think he was wearing like some kind of brown wrestling pants. So I was surprised not to see his usual like flashy ring gear, and he had some cowboy boots. And his hair was cut a little bit different, so I was a little thrown off by his reentrance into this match.
yeah. Well, the story behind him having those brown pants
Right?
was that I guess he was getting his previous
Okay.
pants tailored and
Hmm.
they weren't done in time.
Okay.
So he had to go with those pants.
It happens. We've all been there. You
Yeah,
gotta go with your plan B if your plan A is not working out.
definitely. So, do you have any other like highlights or anything that you enjoyed about this match?
Mostly it was RVD wrestling. I really like to see him flying through the ring.
Hmm.
All his spots were pretty awesome. Him flipping off the cage, him on top of the pods was one of my favorites too. Him hopping off.
Hmm.
I think we see Shawn Michaels also on the top of a pod at one point.
Yeah, we have that. So this is the infamous spot of RVD trying to do his frog splash onto Triple H. What ends up happening because he doesn't have enough clearance in this particular spot, he just falls like a normal body splash, but he doesn't have any control of it because he's not used to doing it at that height, and he's used to like extending his limbs at a certain way during his frog splash. So he lands on Hunter's throat or near his like trachea area, and he actually causes damage to him.
Mm.
It causes so much damage to Hunter where he can't breathe and he can't talk for like a long while. So with this particular match, it's an issue because we have that issue that happens where Kane is released at the wrong time.
Right.
And before this match happened, people like to like plot out their things. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And Hunter and Triple H had realized an hour before the show that they were the last two and that they had not done a walkthrough about the finish.
Oh,
So what they end up doing before this match goes on
right.
is you know what, we'll just call it in we'll just call it in the ring.
Okay.
So they had no plan, and because they had no plan, when Hunter gets his throat hurt,
Mhm.
he could barely communicate.
Wow.
So now it's you have no type of communication with Hunter. You just have to go and try to figure out how to plot the rest of this match. Not only how to audible from Kane coming in and the spot that HBK was supposed to come into,
Mhm.
but also the finale.
Wow. That's tough.
Yeah,
And this goes on for 23 minutes.
this match goes for 39
It goes
minutes.
longer?
Well, after the whole runtime is 39 minutes.
Okay.
But if you're referring to like probably from when it's the last three, maybe where it's just Jericho, HBK, and Hunter, maybe that's the other 23 minutes, because they do go a little bit longer,
Mhm.
even though Hunter is having issues with his trachea and his larynx area.
So what do you think about the duration? Do you think it was, like, too short, too quick?
For this particular match,
Mhm.
I think it's the right amount of time. You have like all these wrestlers that need to be highlighted. You have RVD, who is always he had that trademark where he was the whole effing show.
Mhm.
You have Chris Jericho, who can go, the man of 1,004 holds.
Right.
We have Booker T, the five time, five time, five time, five-time WCW champion. We got to see him do a spinneroonie. We have Kane, who is our previous guest, Tony, is a big fan of Kane, and this is like the prime of Kane's career, I think you could say, because once he takes his mask off, it's all downhill for me, and it was all downhill for Tony. And then you have Hunter, who was the default champion at this time because Brock Lesnar had taken the WWE Championship
Mhm.
with him to SmackDown, and that's what started like, well, Raw needed its own title, and Eric Bischoff bestowed him Triple H the title for the Raw brand, which was the old NWA WCW Big Goldie belt.
Mm. So Triple H ends up winning.
No, Triple H ends up losing.
Does he lose? Wait a
He
minute.
loses this match. Yeah,
The final winner?
the final winner. So we have the last three. We can pick it up from there. After RVD gets eliminated, after that frog splash that goes awry, Booker T gets eliminated, and King gets eliminated by a combination of a lion salt, a pedigree, and sweet chin music. We have um, Jericho right here putting Triple H into the walls of Jericho, and then he gets super kicked by HBK. In case you weren't sure what was happening from far away, that's how that looked like.
Wow.
So we gotta get a close up here of that sweet
That's a
chin
good
music,
close-up.
right? And so once he gets super kicked, that's a 1, 2, 3 pin and win, or a pin, not a win yet for HBK, and then that just leaves them two, Triple H and HBK, going at it. And here's the shot of believe of what you were talking about when HBK does his normally this is done from the top of the turnbuckle,
Mhm.
but just so the folks who are watching this or rewatching this along with us can see, you could see his HBK. He is a little bit shorter than RVD, but he's almost touching like that curve
Oh,
of the
yeah.
top or the roof structure,
Right.
and he's actually standing on the border of the pod where I believe RVD was standing, and there's like a chain link
He
roof to
also gets
those.
pushed through the plexiglass too, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of spots from bulletproof plexiglass. Not only does HBK go through it, but also um, RVD or Jericho goes through it too. And they were not expecting that, and they end up bleeding because of that plexiglass issue.
Wow. So this is definitely a revisit for me. I would definitely recommend that you watch this first ever Elimination Chamber again at Madison Square Garden. That's
Hmm.
where the first WrestleMania was, right?
Yeah, the Mecca. We always return to the Mecca of sports entertainment.
Which is pretty cool. So historic, nostalgic. Again, all these amazing wrestlers in one match. It doesn't get any better than this. I'm glad that we saw it. What about you?
Yeah, I was definitely glad that we got to revisit this match, seeing how this match started
Mhm.
compared to where it is now. Um, There are some changes that they end up doing because, like, the chamber doesn't end up continuing to be round.
Mhm.
They start, like, making some changes, and I forgot to get the picture on there to show you, but it ends up being square just like the ring.
Right.
They take the grates out and they put something that's a little bit more forgiving from when those wrestlers are taking those bumps on the outside.
Mm.
They no longer just have grates. I think they just have platforms. They're most likely either tables or something that's a little bit more reinforced to absorb those particular moves, whether they're back body drops, body slams, or as we saw in the women's and the men's recent elimination chamber matches,
Yeah.
you might get, um, you know,
Also, I just have to throw out there that Jericho has some awesome moves during this match as well because he's flying off of ring ropes like so many times. He
yeah,
actually does like a backflip off of it. And that was an awesome spot among many. So I just had a lot of favorite spots during this match. Really cool.
yeah. This was definitely a match that had like a lot of like high flying action and
Mhm.
spots because we have a younger Chris Jericho, we have a younger HBK, and we have RVD, who's also younger and also in his prime.
I have to say this is probably like one of my favorite Jericho matches that I've seen to date. So this was pretty good to watch. I'm glad this is one that we were able to revisit. So I do have a question. So we
Hmm.
just caught up with today's SmackDown.
Yeah.
So spoiler alert if you all haven't watched SmackDown yet.
Hmm. So the SmackDown show tidbits. Since we are on the road to WrestleMania, Maria and I are gonna be we're gonna be watching Raw, and Maria's gonna be giving her thoughts to it, and I'm gonna be giving my thoughts to it, as I was able to watch it a little bit longer than Maria. Maria, unfortunately,
I fell asleep. It's
I
okay.
mean, we had the 40 minutes promo of the Bloodline.
It
So,
was really long. I was like, well, we were live tweeting while we were watching it, and I was like, we're 30 minutes in, and where's the wrestling? But we weren't alone. It seems like a lot of fans were also asking the same question. They're like, where's the wrestling? Not that I don't appreciate watching the Bloodline or that I don't enjoy like watching The Rock.
mhm.
Because I think he's been an excellent heel since he's popped back in. And I think people are just so excited to see him back. He didn't fail us again today. But when did the wrestling commence?
The wrestling did not commence until maybe 7:45 ish, 7:50. I was trying to keep in track of it, but it was after the bloodline had gone. The main thing from the bloodline is that The Rock acknowledged that Roman Reigns is his tribal chief,
Hmm.
which I do have an issue because they showed a PowerPoint slide
It's
and it
wait, I have to say all the kids call it a slide deck now. So we're telling I heard about this the other day where we're telling our age when we say PowerPoints because the kids call it a slide deck, which I guess is a more slick way of saying it.
okay. Well, they showed a PowerPoint slide when they did the Las Vegas like press conference,
Yes.
and even though Roman Reigns' title in that PowerPoint slide was tribal chief, for The Rock it had the high chief. So to me, high chief is ranked higher than tribal chief, I would think, right? Because you
I'm not
have,
sure.
why would you add high chief and then you have tribal chief?
I don't know.
But that's my issue with it. So he acknowledges that Roman Reigns is his tribal chief. The Rock also made a challenge to Cody and Seth Rollins.
Did
So
he challenge him to what The Rock was cooking? To
no.
no? Okay.
What ends up being here is what we have been rumored to have been getting before. So it looks like, barring any other like wrenches being thrown or anything like that, or any Cody crybabies lashing out on internet Twitter, um, we will be getting a tag match of Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus The Rock and Roman Reigns that will headline the first night of WrestleMania, with the stipulation that if the bloodline loses, there will be no interference from the bloodline at all when Cody Rhodes faces Roman Reigns at night 2 of WrestleMania.
That's disappointing.
Why is it disappointing?
Because I'd like to see the bloodline come in. It's very specific.
Well,
So,
The Rock did mention, and here's the possible out, okay? Because there was a recent signing,
mhm,
and even though he's not listed in the PowerPoint slide of the family breakdown,
slide.
he is actually been confirmed to be part of the family in a recent tweet, and I forget who tweeted that.
Ooh.
So when The Rock mentioned that there would be no bloodline interference,
Mhm.
he said there will be no interference from Solo. There will be no interference from Jimmy. There would be no interference from Paul Heyman. There would be no interference from him, The Rock. But the WWE just recently signed Tama Tonga, the
Mhm.
adopted son and nephew of Haku.
Ooh.
And his name was not mentioned. It could have been purposefully done or it could have just been accidental. But my theory is if Roman Reigns does defend successfully his title,
Right.
that it would be because of Tama Tonga.
Speculation.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. Love it.
Anything else before I get into the matches that happen?
No, go for it.
All right. So what we also had after this, we had a match between Naomi and Tiffany Stratton.
Mhm.
So you missed Tiffy time.
Aw.
But what I want to point out here is we did not get to see Naomi's entrance on the television feed.
Hmm.
Maybe the people there get to see it, but we did not. We were robbed of the whole black lights and music and everything.
Is it because the screen was blacking out every so often?
Well, the screen was backing out because there was a sign that said "Die Rocky Die,"
Oh wow.
and the people did not at Fox did not want the people at home to see that sign.
That's interesting because that was happening several times, and people across Twitter were asking if everyone's feed was going in and out like ours
hmm
was.
So that was what I had seen that was tweeted by Denise Salcedo,
Wow.
who said it was tweeted by PW Insider. That was the
Mm.
reason why we kept getting the feed cut off because there was a sign that was "Die Rocky Die."
You got the tea.
Yeah, so that's actually reminiscent of when Rocky started out in his Rocky Maivia phase. There were signs that had that particular words to it. So
Friends. Wow.
yeah, so getting back to this one, we don't get any introduction to Naomi. We don't get her entrance. We get Tiffany Stratton out here, and everyone on Twitter was like, "Why is Naomi not getting her entrance?
Mm-hmm.
Why is she out here with Naomi? I
Right.
mean, with Tiffany?
Mm-hmm.
Are they really gonna have her job out to it?" And in my head, I was like, "Well, if they do have her job out to it, that means put Tiffany over.
Right.
It's gonna be in a cheap way because I could see this actually continuing to feud, and maybe we might get something later on the line. If not at
Mm.
WrestleMania,
Okay.
we might get it maybe a little bit after WrestleMania. So
Wow.
we did get Tiffany Stratton giving like a little eye poke to Naomi, and then Naomi's a little dazed. Tiffany ends up hitting the prettiest little moonsault, and she gets her cheap win.
Hmm.
Beside that, we had another tag match with Bailey, Dakota Kai versus the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane. And at this point in time, the match, Bailey is reaching for the hot tag, and Dakota's there. But at that moment, when Bailey's reaching for that final inch, Dakota Kai jumps off the apron. It was a swerve. She betrays Bailey, and she is with damage control, and they all start beating down Bailey. Bailey has no help at all. Nobody comes out there for the save. This leads me to believe that we are probably going to get a tag team come forward to help out Bailey in the upcoming
Ooh.
feud
Mm-hmm.
that she has with damage control. even the odds.
Right.
Who that tag team is, I really can't think of. Maybe it could have been Indy and Candice LeRae, but they were dispatched very easily in the tag team title match that they had that was on the kickoff for the Perth pay per view.
Mhm.
So we did see Jade Cargill in the back uh, interact with the Kabuki Warriors. So maybe we get a tag team of her and maybe Bianca.
Mhm.
That's always been something we've heard someone speculate, especially the guys over there at Podcast Championship Wrestling. They've always said that maybe we'd be able to get Bianca and Jade as the tag team.
Mhm.
And maybe that's how Bianca not only gets to do her match at WrestleMania, but we also get her kind of build that kind of feud where, it's kind of like when Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior or Macho Man were a tag team and
Right.
then they had that blow up.
Mhm.
They could do something like that where eventually Jade gets jealous or Bianca gets jealous.
Mhm.
Somebody gets jealous and that tag team breaks up and they have tag team and they end up feuding over a world championship title or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Other matches we had on SmackDown, we had Braun Breaker destroy, I believe it's Zion Quinn. He just speared him like in 5 seconds and the match was over.
Wow.
We had the street fight between Carlito and Santos Escobar, which was going in the favor of El Legado del Fantasma
Mhm.
until we got a returning Rey Mysterio coming back.
What?
He was on crutches and he was making his way down there, and Legado, Angel Garza, and Humberto were gonna go over there. And it turns out that it's a ruse. Rey Mysterio ends up beating those guys down with his crutches. He ends up running some interference, and Carlito picks up the win over Legado del Fantasma.
That sounds great.
Yeah. And then the last match we had was Austin Theory versus Randy Orton. For some reason, Kevin Owens was doing commentary. Maybe this could lead to some type of match where we get Randy Orton, Kevin Owens against um, Logan Paul.
Mm.
Because Randy Orton still, in my theory, has to get his revenge for Logan Paul costing him a shot at a world's heavyweight or at the world's heavyweight championship. That one was the one that was on the line at Perth
Right.
against Seth Rollins. Because if you remember, Logan Paul was pretending to be hurt, and then he got his knuckles, and then he punched,
Mhm.
and he screwed Randy Orton from that opportunity that he had. So close to facing Seth Rollins. So
Wow.
yeah, I think it's just gonna be Logan Paul versus Randy for the U.S. Championship.
Mhm.
Many have speculated that Randy really doesn't need that title.
Right.
I do agree with that, but
Why do you agree with them?
well, Randy was just in a couple of matches. He faced Roman Reigns for the WWE Universal one.
Mhm.
He was in the match for the World's Heavyweight Championship, the WWE one, and him going for the US title would kind of be like a step down. If it's a triple threat match, like if it's Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, and Logan Paul,
Mhm.
then you have kind of like an out. Like if Randy still loses, uh, and Logan Paul retains, kind of type of thing, then
Right.
it doesn't really hurt Randy because he never had that one-on-one match, and or if Kevin Owens is in that match and he ends up beating Logan Paul for that belt, I don't know if Kevin Owens is still hurt, so we can take a look and see if that actually happens. But as far as a one-on-one match between Randy Orton and Logan Paul, it kind of really doesn't make sense. But I could probably see it being like a triple threat match like that.
Mm.
So those were the last little bit tidbits that we got from SmackDown.
Yeah.
Anything interest you from there?
Overall,
Mm.
what'd you think about it?
I thought this was, besides the whole 40 minutes that they gave to the Bloodline,
Mhm.
this was an okay SmackDown. Something seemed off. We were always told that or I don't know, maybe someone on internet Twitter, like put out a bad rumor or something like that, or got a bad source. But we were told that Cody Rhodes was going to be at the SmackDown,
Mm.
and it became apparent after the 40 minutes when he didn't show up that he might not actually be there.
Wow.
So
Hmm.
this was produced. Usually, it's weird. We don't get like the bloodline coming out this early, and if they do, then somebody gets a match later on, like Solo or Jimmy or whatever. But them coming out and not getting anything later on was weird,
Okay.
and then it seemed to throw off everything.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
some things seemed rushed and some things didn't.
Well, if you have opinions on this first ever Elimination Chamber, or if you have opinions about SmackDown, please definitely comment. Um, like us, add us on YouTube. And if you haven't added us, we're also on Instagram. And where else can they find us?
On X, on Blue Sky, on Threads, our Facebook. We have a Facebook group, Revisiting the Mania. And I believe that's it.
Yeah. And if you, again, like to talk about wrestling as much as we do, be sure to subscribe.
Right. Subscribe here. We're also on audio formats as a podcast. You can find us anywhere your podcasts that you normally listen to: Apple, YouTube Music, Spotify, Spreaker, Podcatcher. If we're not on a podcast platform that you listen to, let me know. Shoot us an email at revisitingmania.
Send us a telegram.
That's revisitingmania@gmail.com. You can always drop a comment on our YouTube or on our Facebook group. Um,
Send us an SOS.
yeah, you can do that too. We also
Except carrier pigeons.
we also have our t-shirt available if you want to upload. We've uploaded a design, which is our logo that you see on the top corner right there. So if you want to help us out, buy a t-shirt. We're available on Pro Wrestling Tees, and you can just type in the search bar Revisiting the Mania. There's no other thing that pops up, and you can purchase that there. Let us know if you have an idea for a design. Please reach out and contact us.
Support us.
Yeah.
Love us. Like us. Buy a t-shirt. They look pretty awesome. Love the colors. So pretty bold.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode. This side quest that we did of revisiting the first ever Elimination Chamber match from Survivor Series 2002. Our next episode will be WrestleMania 25. We are not sure. We might have a guest. We may not have a guest. But the only thing that we do know for sure is that this next episode will be on March the 9th.
March 9th.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us.
Bye.